Ladies and gentlemen, today, someone who built successful businesses on three continents, not one or two, three continents, Jeremy walks the walk and leads a movement mainly from his Twitter account that he defines as sovereignty simplified, the way of Jerz. Educational threats on LLCs, multiple residencies, multiple passports. He's a Brazil and Spain lover. We're going to talk about that today. And well, we met in Barra, in Rio de Janeiro, in Brazil. And since then, I knew that we'd have so much fun recording an episode together. So it's really an honor, a pleasure, Jeremy, to be here today with you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah. So as you know, the first question I always ask on this podcast is, what are the three accomplishments that you are most proud of in your life?
Very good questions you ask. Well, I would say number one is the fact that 15 years ago, I made the decision that I did not want to live in the United States anymore. And I decided to leave. I went to Latin America. Originally, the idea was I would stay there for 6 months, for a year, move on to Europe maybe. But I ended up staying in Latin America for over a decade before I sort of started transitioning a little bit to Europe, a little bit back to Latin America. But I think certainly my proudest achievement was having success with that. Over the years, I've just watched so many people try and so many people fail. So I think it is an accomplishment to have success doing it. It's very rewarding for sure, but it's not easy.
Yeah. What year did you start the traveling out of the US?
I started in 2008.
Imagine. So it's 2023 when we are recording this, so
exactly
15 years.
So it's been exactly 15 years since I made that decision and I left.
An OG.
Yeah, I especially on Twitter, I interact with so many people, and even the people who have been doing it for a long time, very few of them are around from 10 plus years ago. You know, most of the people who consider themselves veterans have 5, 6, 7 years. Yeah, I have a little bit longer than that. It's still going, totally. Strong.
Yeah, love it. So this is the first one, definitely an accomplishment to be proud of.
Mm-hmm. And then I would say the other big one was before I decided to leave the United States and embark on this journey or this life that I'm living now, I built a very successful real estate development company in the United States. This was pre-2008, pre the market taking the dive that it did. I formed a group, and within this group, we successfully converted some huge projects in Florida from apartment complexes to condominiums, made some good money doing that. And that, I guess, in a sense, allowed me to get started on this journey of leaving the United States. So I would definitely put that right up there. And then for my third one, I would say through the course of this journey, this process, I decided that I needed another citizenship. So I embarked on this journey myself. It was this long, convoluted journey I'm sure we'll get into, but I ended up getting Austrian citizenship. Which is a very good citizenship and a very hard citizenship to get. And that would be, I'd say, another of my crown achievements, so to speak, that I'm very proud of.
Totally, especially when Americans want to have more options, right? They buy citizenship by investment in the Caribbean. You could get it through descent. And I think that's something very valuable for the audience, for everybody listening, because it's a path that maybe it's not as known or not as direct. I'd love to know more about your experience. How was it? When did you start considering, first of all, that you could probably get some Austrian descendants and get a passport?
It's a long story, because what happened, I was living in Argentina, in Buenos Aires. I want to say 2009, somewhere in there. It was maybe a year or two after I first started this journey. And I was reading a book by Neil Strauss called Emergency, which it's all about this sovereign lifestyle. And I guess he's the real OG because he was writing about this before the terminology really even existed. And one of the things that he does in the process, he picks up a second citizenship. And I was sitting in my little apartment in Buenos Aires, and I was thinking, this is something I really need to think about. So I briefly thought about doing the by investment, but first, as Neil has suggested in the book, talk to your family, see if there's any possibility of a citizenship by descent. And I'm an only child, grew up in California, great parents, but they're very closed people. We don't talk too much about family history, any of that. So I knew very, very little of my parents' history. Well, I knew their history, but my grandparents, I knew they came from Europe. So that's why I thought, well, maybe there was a shot. So I talked to my dad. First thing my dad says is, "Why would you want another citizenship? That's stupid." Yeah, the typical parent.
Wow, first reaction. Right?
Yeah, because he's like, "Well, you have U.S. citizenship. U.S. citizenship is the best. Why would you want to do that?" So I started asking some questions, and at first, it looked like his father had immigrated to the United States during World War II. And he was born in a small town, which was part of the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, then later became part of Poland, and then today is in present-day Ukraine. And so I was like, okay, I don't exactly know where to start, but I just started doing some research. And what happened, because the borders had changed, and because of the dates and the fact that after World War I, he ended up living in Vienna for a number of years. When I started, I thought it was Polish citizenship. And then I actually thought, because when he left Vienna, it was German. So for a little while, it looked like I was going to go for German citizenship. But in the end, what worked out was Austrian. I also could have gotten Polish citizenship because his birth certificate is considered Polish. So I could have gone either way there, and I ended up doing Austria. It took years to do. It was not a fast process. Had to locate, because this town changed so much, we couldn't locate the birth record, and eventually I hooked up. I took a trip one summer to Warsaw, met a phenomenal researcher who still works with me, and he helped me locate the records in the historical archives in Warsaw.
Wow, it was fascinating journey. So I see that you were quite involved, right, in this process.
Completely,
like you took the time. You're like, yeah, you were there.
I did it 100% by myself, which. I made a lot of mistakes, and one of the reasons it took so long was I wasn't really clear about a lot of the things. I speak a little bit of German, but not really. So it's difficult. I mean, that's the advantage of hiring somebody who has been down this road before. The process can go a lot faster, can go a lot smoother, but yeah, in the end, it worked out, and now with that passport, it allows me to live part of the year in Europe. Certainly accomplished my goal, so to speak, right?
Yeah, you've used it.
The what?
You use it when you go to Europe. You use the Austrian one.
Yeah. So
how do you combine the American and the Austrian when you travel?
I generally use the Austrian one now, except for when I go to the US, you have to technically use the US one.
Yeah.
But
besides that, the most used is the Austrian one when you go to Colombia, when you go to Brazil, when you go to places like this.
It is, because like in Colombia and in Brazil, I got my residencies using the Austrian passport. And the primary reason I did it, it makes opening bank accounts somewhat easier. Because
Imagine.
well, a lot of countries after the F-bar thing a few years back, they don't want to open bank accounts for U.S. citizens. So even with permission, with passports, there are a lot of banks in a lot of countries that just flat out refuse to work with Americans.
Well, look at that. We are 10 minutes in, and look how a research, like how a conversation with your dad that lead to the granddad that lead to traveling to Austria, right? How it changed your life, Jeremy. Like
Completely.
you could be like living now these 15 years traveling just with one passport, the US one, and having
Exactly.
struggles opening bank accounts, what you are mentioning, to when you can choose, when creating the residency in Colombia and Brazil, which one of the two you use the new one, right? The Austrian one. So the huge advantages of getting it, especially by descent, and the cost is not $150,000, $200,000
Exactly.
like the Caribbean ones by investment, but much
Exactly.
less.
And the thing is, I always tell people, so many people, I think especially from places like the United States, a lot of people from South America have a very easy route to obtain, or relatively easy route to obtain a passport by descent, and they have no idea. They just think it's impossible, too expensive, whatever the excuse is. But it's 100% worth doing for every person out there who possibly can. I
Totally.
could not recommend it more.
Totally, because in case it does not work out and you can't claim any citizenship by descent, at least you know. At least you've researched 5, 6 generations and you are like, okay. But imagine you find two. It's like
exactly you that's the first
finding gold.
when people, I mean, that's the first thing to look at, because it's gonna be the cheapest,
Yeah.
not necessarily the fastest, but it's gonna be a relatively fast option. And then if that doesn't work out, you can start looking at the other two avenues, which are either the investment or residency. I think especially now in Latin America, those passports are fairly good now. Brazilian passport, Paraguayan passport, Mexican passport, like you have. And you can get those passports relatively inexpensively and relatively fast through residency. So
100%.
it's another great option for people to look at, I think.
Yeah. It's like real estate investment is you buy the residency and know that in 5 years you can turn it into something valuable like a passport. So it's like
Exactly.
just get a bunch of residencies. That's a strategy that so many people did. It's like just get residencies even if you don't know if you're gonna live there or not, but they're gonna age. And after 3, 5, 6 years, boom, you have 3, 4 passports.
And one thing, speaking to that point, so in this journey, over the years, I had obtained these residencies. I had obtained a Spanish residency even before I had the Austrian passport. I had obtained Colombian residency. I had obtained Panamanian, and I just sort of did it. I didn't really have a reasoning or just, I thought in the back of my mind it was a good idea, but it wasn't like something pressing that was really important. And then COVID hits, and I watch everybody else I know stuck at home for 2-3 years, unable to leave. And my travel didn't slow down at all. I'm flying all over the world. I'm on empty planes. I'm whizzing through the airport. I'm watching it's sad really, because I'm watching these people crying at the airport because they can't go visit their family. They don't have the right paper. And for me, it could not have been easier. I mean, I could enter the US, I could enter any European country, and I could enter the majority of South American countries. So
in Central America, yeah.
I was pretty set. And I ended up most of the pandemic between Madrid, which was one of the few capital cities in all of Europe that never really closed down, and Rio de Janeiro, which also was pretty much open the entire time. So I did not have the crazy stay at home, watch Netflix experience that most of the world had for those couple of years.
You could literally visit places on your own, have nature, have everything almost at your disposal, right?
I have, in fact, I'll post some of these on Twitter. I had some amazing experiences traveling through Europe the first summer. I guess that was what, 2020, and nobody was traveling. So there are pictures of me in Athens at the Acropolis, empty. I'm the only person there, and just unbelievable experience, once in a lifetime experiences to see some of the like great historical tourist attractions without the tourists.
Yeah, totally. I can relate. When you mentioned this, I remember Cyprus, being alone in beautiful paradisical beaches there and being able to travel there, or Mexico. It's truly amazing, and it's something you did. You took the step, even, and something that I want to highlight here for everybody listening is you didn't feel any pressure that you had to get those residencies, but you got them, and boom, they came in handy afterwards, because of course nobody was expecting a black swan like that one.
Exactly.
So,
and I think starting in COVID and after COVID, since supposedly, I guess we're finished with COVID now, we can say that. But I think I had started like helping friends and doing some citizenships by descent for other people. And then I've been doing that for a number of years, and then, through their friends. So I had like a little business doing this, but really with COVID, what I saw is there's a real business opportunity here, because the demand for this in the last couple of years has exploded. But also I've started to really enjoy doing it because I'm actually helping people. It's not, yes, I mean, you're in a sense, you're selling a product, but you're selling something that's really helping people. And, whether it's another something like COVID, or just the world changing and the government's getting more restricted, whatever that is, I think that people are wise to have plan Bs at this point, whatever that is, whatever that means for them.
Totally, because who thinks that was the last one? It's ignorant, it's naive. More is coming, so that was the alert. And what you do right now between that one and the next that's gonna come is what's gonna set this freedom. Actually, you're gifting freedom, and that's beautiful. Like you're gifting freedom to people. You are giving them plan Bs, options, sovereignty.
And I think right now we have this little bitty window. It's not going to last for long. I think governments are going to become much more restrictive, and the little, the programs that exist are either going to go away or change so much it's going to become considerably more difficult within a short amount of time. You
could see it with Panama. They changed. Before you could get it like PR, just like this, PR, permanent residency, like this. And now took more steps. Paraguay, the same. September this last year, it went from permanent directly, which is what I got, to now temporary to then permanent, unless you have context. That's another conversation. But
the Panama one, I did. I think they changed it in 2017. I did it a year or two before they changed that. And it was ridiculously easy. You had to, I think, put $5,000 in a bank account and permanent residence. And then, like you said, that's gone now. There's still something, but it's a lot more complicated. Paraguay, from what I understand, is still fairly easy, but you have to do the temporary first. Yeah. We'll talk. I'm coming. I'm coming. That's one of my. I'm coming. I think I've got to go to the U.S. for a couple weeks, and then I'm going to Brazil. And from Brazil, I plan to take a trip to Paraguay and do residency of some kind in Paraguay, because I think we'll talk about that off.
Totally.
Off of this. But I think Paraguay is a solid option that people should consider right now from all the research I've done.
It is totally. For somebody who was just listening, there was a wink in between that when we talk about Paraguay. But yeah, totally. And actually now, Jeremy and everybody listening, the 30th April, there were elections. We are talking like 2 days ago. So the party that everybody was expecting to win or to have 4 or 5 more years of freedom and building, this sovereignty in Paraguay won. So that's great news for the country. We're expecting like the same conditions, even contacts in there that allow you to create a solid base in Paraguay to still help. So that's great news for everybody looking to move and create a base in Paraguay, whether it's just a tax base, paper tax base, or actually like buying real estate or living there. Yeah.
And I think depending, I mean, it could change depending on what happens this year in Argentina, but I think in El Salvador and Paraguay are the only not governments that are not completely to the left at this point in all of Latin America. So interesting.
Yeah, the land of the free still, Paraguay. Exactly. So many things that are unregulated that you can literally go there and create a future. So many opportunities.
I'm also eager to go because the last time I was in Paraguay was like 2010, I think. And so there was no foreigners there. And I didn't live there. I went for a short visit, but I'm very curious how much it's changed. When I was there were no high rises. Asuncion was a small, pretty insignificant capital city at that point. So I think there's been a lot of positive change.
Yeah, quite a few. You'll see when you go there. But positive, I can say, and that's beautiful. That's something that I admire from you, which is you can literally say, I've been here, like, and go again, and places how those places were 13, 14, 15 years ago. Like, for example, Paraguay. Now you have 2 visions, right? So most of us, when we go there, it's Paraguay the first time. That's it. We don't have anything to compare to, and you actually have this track record. It's beautiful.
The one that I'm really familiar with because I lived there for years is Medellin. So what is Medellin today is so different from when I first got there. When I showed up, there were, I think, 5 English speakers. You heard English on the street. It was like, this is something weird because there weren't any foreigners. And now, of course, when you go, I think there are more foreigners than Colombia. It's not really, but it's everything about that place has changed. So yeah, these places change, they grow, but it is something I think unique, and something that I quite enjoy is being able to see these same places through the different eyes, through the different lenses, like you're talking about, just because of all the time.
Yeah. So let's get into Medellin, then Brazil, and then Spain. I know these are the 3 places you are in love with, places you spend time on, places where you build businesses. For example, Medellin, right? When we met in Baja, we were talking about the business you had there. Tell us a bit more. What captivated you from Medellin? What made you like, wow, I wanna create something in here, not just leave, but actually set some roots?
So let me back up a little bit, I guess, and explain why I ended up in Medellin in the first place. So I lived in Panama, then Argentina, then briefly maybe 6 months in Costa Rica. on my travels, I'd heard all this great stuff about Colombia, but there still really weren't foreigners in Colombia. So when foreigners were talking about Colombia, they were talking about Cartagena. And so my original plan was to go to Cartagena for 6 months. But I was staying in Manuel Antonio, which is on the Pacific coast of Costa Rica, and it was so hot. I just needed to go someplace that wasn't humid. So I said, okay, I'm not going to go to Cartagena, but I really want to go to Colombia. Where do I want to go? So I went to Google and I type on Google, warm city in Colombia, something like that. And it comes up City of Eternal Spring, Medellin. I'm like, oh, this looks nice. Honestly, I'd never even heard of Medellin. And so I Googled, okay, Medellin. And the first article that comes up is a Time magazine article from the mid to late 80s. And the title of the article was something to the effect, Medellin, the most dangerous city in the most dangerous country in the world. And so my sense of adventure gets me. I'm like, I'm going to Medellin.
Book.
I sent an email with the copy of the article to my parents, and I said, this is where I'm moving next.
Oh my goodness.
Always the prodigal son. So I get to Medellin, and I was expecting a little danger, and it had already Uribe was president. He cleaned it up considerably. It was not particularly dangerous, but it did have on every street corner in the good parts of town, you had military with machine guns, you had police everywhere. So it was like you were entering some sort of police state, basically. But I went, and I just really liked it. As I said, there were
Pause for a second. Let me pause here.
Okay, good. So so I get to Medellin, and it wasn't at all what I expected. It was not so dangerous. I very quickly, like I said, there were 5 foreigners there. I made friends with them. I had a very tight, close friend group, which is very important, I think, when you're an expat, when you're a digital nomad, to connect. And then I also ended up very quickly making some really good Colombian friends, some local friends. And I fell in love with Colombia, with Medellin. My mind, I've always been very entrepreneurial and had businesses. And when I came to Latin America, I knew I was going to do some businesses. I'd tinkered with a few things already. But when I got to Medellin, in the back of my mind, when I was backing up a little bit, when I lived in Argentina, I had met a hairdresser who installed hair extensions. And I knew that when I had lived in Los Angeles previously, my girlfriend was obsessed with hair extensions. And I was paying $2,000, $3,000 to get these things installed every few months. And it was just terrible quality hair. It would get all ratty. And this hairdresser there just had these beautiful extensions. He was like, where did you get this hair? So he introduced me to the contact where this hair actually came from, which was in a small pueblo, like on the border between Argentina and Paraguay. So I made friends with that guy. No idea why, but a few years later, I end up in Medellin, and it just light bulb moment. I look around, you have all these beautiful women, and everybody's obsessed with hair extensions. And they're buying just this crap hair from China. And it's expensive. It's really expensive. Back then, the Colombian peso was like 1,800 to 2,000 range. So it was much more expensive. Now, it's close to 5,000 for reference. So because the peso was strong, I could buy this hair pretty cost effectively in dollars from Argentina. And so I started importing it. I opened up a little shop, not installing hair, just basically selling the hair. Started selling it to other salons, wholesaling it, and built a rather big business for a few years there, importing hair into Colombia. And that's one of the things I always like trying to tell people is, you can't, it's good to have an idea, what you enjoy, what type of business, but a true entrepreneur is just always going to have his eyes open, and he's always going to find those new opportunities, jump on them. And then the other thing, the opportunity is not going to last forever. Like in the case of the hair extensions, what happened is within a couple of years, the peso started going the other way. So the hair became much more expensive. The fashion trends changed. So the extensions weren't so popular. And it wasn't a profit. It was ridiculously profitable for a couple of years, and then no. And so then, because I had this huge client base, I had half the women in Medellin in my database. So I was able to transition that into other businesses. And that's what the successful entrepreneur has to do. He has to be able to change. It's like I read some of these threads and tweets on Twitter, and you have some of these younger kids who are in Latin America, and they're having some pretty good success writing content, whatever it is. But if they think that content writing or that agency they're building is going to be there in 10, 15 years, it's just simply not. It may be, but in some other form. So you have to constantly evolve as an entrepreneur, as a business owner. And if you don't, you'll die. You'll fail.
Totally. And you rode the wave. And look at that, how beautiful we can weave here in this story the sovereignty and this freedom. You got the idea from Argentina when you were living there.
Exactly.
Somebody on the border close to Paraguay, to then going to Medellin, seeing this opportunity and saying, wait, let me connect the dots, and then right?
And that's a great way to put it. You're connecting the dots. That's what a successful entrepreneur needs to do. And look, you don't even necessarily have to do something different. You just, it could be a better way to do the same thing, or some little niche. And again, I think, especially on Twitter, what I see, so many people aren't trying to differentiate themselves in any way. It's like, oh, I'm a copywriter and I write copy. Okay, well, there are 1,000 other people in my
or even like ChatGPT now writes copy as well, right?
Exactly.
For a fraction of the price and faster.
Exactly. You have to find your niche. It can be within copywriting, but find something and do it differently or in some other way, and create a niche for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you did it in another country, in another language that people usually, entrepreneurs in English in America, if you are a US citizen, and boom, you do it in another country, another language. So really, that's another barrier, and you just smashed it. You just broke it.
And I'm glad you brought it up. Another thing that I would 100% recommend to people starting out: learn the language. How many expats over the years have I met who've been living for years, and whether it's Spain, whether it's Colombia, and they literally can't put together 2 words of Spanish. Mm-hmm. There's just no way without the language you're ever gonna truly integrate yourself into the society, into the culture. Certainly, you're not gonna have success in business. Mm-hmm. Learn the language. It's just makes the experience so much better.
Totally, and it forces you to really say, okay, it's not here, I need Spanish to order food. I need Spanish to close sales. That's another level of proficiency.
Exactly.
It's I mean, you convince somebody to pay you money in another language. You gotta be fluent.
Exactly. I'll tell you a little. So when I first moved,
Yeah, go ahead.
when I was in Argentina, I was having trouble learning the language because I thought, oh, okay, I'm good at business. I'm good at learning stuff. Give me a couple months, I'm going to be completely fluent. But when I first started off on this journey, I came with a girlfriend who was American. So I was speaking English all day. I wasn't speaking Spanish. And yes, I was taking classes and I was trying, but it didn't work. And I remember talking to a lawyer I had in Argentina, and his name was Aldo. And I was like, Aldo, I'm so frustrated that I can't speak the language fluently. And he said, I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. You'll learn exactly as much as you need. Not a word more, not a word less. And within a year or two, I was in Medellin, I was single, I was dating paisas, I was doing business, trying to do business, and I needed to learn the language. And as soon as I had that need, I was fluent in weeks, but very quickly. And so that's, I guess, another bit of advice I can give is find your need, because it's going to be different for every person, but find a reason to learn that language, and it'll make it go a lot faster.
Totally. So powerful what you share. Such a good advice, because it's not just, okay, change Duolingo, change an app for going to the place, where it's go to that place and actually mingle with people that are not speaking English all the time, or do something meaningful like you did, whether it's dating, whether it's business.
Exactly.
That's powerful. And actually with this, like joking, you speak English, you speak Spanish, Portuguese, right?
Yeah.
You understand the Portuguese at least, right?
It's getting, no, my Portuguese is getting, it's funny you say that, because as I spend more and more time in Brazil,
Yeah.
I need my Portuguese to, my Portuguese is probably like a 5 or a 6 right now. So I can understand everything, but
Yeah.
it's hard for me to string words together.
Yeah.
My girlfriend's, as you know, is Brazilian. And so because I met her in Spain, and we met speaking Spanish, we had been just speaking Spanish, but now I'm getting her to always speak Portuguese to me. And, in a matter of months since the last time I saw you, my Portuguese is getting much better just for that reason, because I'm speaking Portuguese all the time.
All the time. Exactly. Beautiful. Yeah. And in Spanish, I guess it's very fluent. Like out of 10,
yeah,
what would you rate it?
I mean, well, your English is probably a 10, but it's not as good as your English, but it's good enough. I can understand it 100%, and I can speak it, at a 9.
And
I've taught classes in Spanish, so
boom, there you go.
It's good enough.
You close businesses in Spanish. Come on.
Exactly.
It's like it must be good. It must be good.
My accent's still.
But
I don't want to say my accent, but it's what people always say is because I learned Spanish in so many different places. My accent.
That's what I was gonna ask. It's like it's your Spanish. Es un español de Medellín, de más Latinoamérica, o es un español de España.
It's definitely not from España. I don't have the lisp.
Okay.
Although I'd like to, if it's possible, I'd like to change my language, my my accent for the Spanish. I think it sounds better, but I'd say it's sort of a mix match between because coming from the U.S., you sort of speak that bad gringo Spanish. And then the first place I really tried to learn Spanish was Argentina. So I speak it with the Medellin,
Yeah, I got you.
So it's a weird mix.
It's a mix.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
a mix.
People always say Spanish. Where did you learn Spanish? It's such a weird accent.
It's like so many places for so many years, right?
It's like the question, when somebody asks me, "Where's home?" It's like,
ask Jeremy
how much time do you got?
Good one. But actually, talking about home, Jeremy, like you are right now in a place that probably you could call home, Madrid, right? It's a place that you love. I see your tweets. We've talked about Madrid, the place you're spending time in, Spain in general. But would you say Madrid is one of your favorite places in Spain?
I do. I'd say my two favorite places in Spain are Madrid and then the Costa Blanca between Alicante and Valencia. I used to years ago. I always thought I would end up in Barcelona, but I just don't like what Barcelona has become. I think I mean, it's still a great city. I still love going there, but I don't think it's as good of place to live as Medellin, as Madrid is. I think Madrid, it's completely safe. It's completely clean. They've done a great job of renovating all of the sites in the city. The Ayuso, who's the president now, has really done a wonderful job of encouraging growth, encouraging businesses to come. What she can do, like incentivize on the state level as far as taxes go, lower business regulations. She's done all of that. Spain, as you know, it still has its challenges. Depending what happens. Spain has an election this year, so we'll see. That could go either way, I suppose.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really do enjoy Madrid. I spend probably like 4 to 6 months a year here. And then right now I'm probably doing 4 to 6 months in Brazil. Maybe a month and a half to 2 months in the United States. But mostly my parents are older and they need a lot of help. So I go back frequently for them. If it weren't for them, I would probably go back to the States once every 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I do not enjoy going to the States.
Wow.
But I do. I'm gonna go either later this week or next week. I need to go help them do some stuff, because especially they're both so vulnerable, and even now that we're sort of out of COVID, they're still very much protective, and they don't do a lot of stuff. So they basically wait every few months for me to come to help them. So I go to the States a lot, and then the other month or two just traveling to new places, exploring.
Totally. And look at that, ladies and gentlemen, what Jeremy does here. He just like stays in the best places he can find: Brazil, Spain, great, awesome places, just under the 6 months. So we are not triggering any tax event that, God damn it, you don't want to trigger in Spain.
Yes, exactly.
You definitely do not want to. And also in the United States, there's this law of how many months in the last 3 years, with like multiplied with different factors. Like the last year has more weight, the other a bit less, and a bit less. But the overall rule,
the states has the
4 months, right?
The foreign earned income exclusion. There are basically two tests for that. The first test, I believe, is 35 days, which I actually am over always. But there's a second test, which is a bona fide residence test.
Okay.
And I meet that test. So, but like for somebody just starting out, especially the first year, you have to be very careful to spend less than 35 days in the United States.
Yes, and yeah, totally. And then I guess also real estate internationally helps to reduce the taxes, to optimize the taxes, since it's something you don't need to declare to the IRS. Is that correct?
You mean if you own real estate in foreign countries?
Yes.
No, you have to declare all of that.
You declare it.
Yeah. You have to declare.
So your properties, you declare everything to the IRS.
Okay. Well, so if you,
as much as you feel comfortable, otherwise we talk about Brazil.
I'm not going to say I'm in no way saying what I personally do, but if you purchase properties in your name, you have to declare your interest in that property. If you own property, say through a corporation, that property doesn't get declared personally, but as a US citizen, you would still have to technically, depending on how much of the corporation you own, you would have to declare your interest in the corporation. Tax stuff gets very complicated though.
Yes,
So
I can imagine.
Make sure anybody listening, get good guidance. If you're an American, because the IRS knows all.
Totally, and to be very honest, like anybody listening who is US citizen, I'd rather hire somebody from the US like Jeremy, like somebody who's really walked the walk and it's been 15 years traveling and knows how to do this stuff, because you know exactly what the IRS asks for, what gets audited, what you need to report, etc., and what are the loopholes. I always tell there are always loopholes. Always.
Exactly.
So
and
just getting to know them.
The idea for everybody, regardless of what country you're from, is to pay the least amount of taxes that you can legally. That's the key. It has to be legal, and understand what that means. And unfortunately for us U.S. citizens, it's a lot more difficult and a lot more complicated. That's I don't know if you want to get into it, but a lot of people have asked me, especially lately, about renouncing citizenship.
Interesting. Go ahead.
Which is not something I have done. And my advice generally is it's not worth it unless you're an exceptionally high worth individual. Although, there are a lot of disadvantages that come with the tax reporting and the tax requirements of being an American. At this point today, I do still feel that the US has the best job market in the world. It's, in my experience anyways, it's the easiest place to do business. It's the easiest place to make money. So, unless you were so rich, you had so much money that there was no possibility you ever needed to have that option to go back and make money, it's probably not worth considering. And especially a lot of the people who write me and stuff, and ask about that. It's, I'm considering renouncing my citizenship. Well, what's your approximate net worth? $50,000. Well, it's.
I was just thinking the same.
It's something. It's okay. It's to have it in the back of your mind, and
a future goal.
When you make all this, when you're on that path, or when you think about it.
Totally.
But I don't think that. Somebody, unless they're a very high net worth individual, it's probably not worth it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you'd rather, if you have 50K at your name, you'd rather use 6K, 10K instead of optimizing the taxes in reinjecting it in your business and making more money.
I think so, because as I said, I do think that I think it affords you some opportunities, or could afford you some opportunities. Like, I know, if I had no money and I needed to go back to the United States, I could make money very, very fast there, much faster than I could in Europe, because I have the option to do that anywhere in Europe too, much faster in the United States. And unless your net worth is, I would say, personally, I would say it would have to be like that 10 million mark or so, enough where you probably didn't need to make another dollar the rest of your life.
And then you renounce with peace of mind, you'd say.
Then I would think about it for sure.
Yeah, you could consider it.
Exactly.
Nice. So, we talked about the citizenship by descent, Medellin. We talked about Spain a little bit, about renouncing citizenship, US citizenship. Super interesting topic. Something else that I like to bring into this conversation, of course, is Brazil, a place that you know about, you visited, you love. Also, really interesting threads. Like you are the first one that I read about the concept of the kitchenettes. There are these lofts, small lofts that are popular, let's say in Rio, in Sao Paulo, for people listening. You can buy it for 80,000, 100,000, something like that, and you can rent it in Airbnb for quite a good profit. And I read that thread. I think it's one of the first threads that I read from you, and it's like, oh, I love how this guy takes complex stuff or sees opportunities and just like digests it in such a simple way that captivated me. And yeah, I'd love to know more how you see Brazil as a country, what opportunities you see in there, and what's been your experience so far.
So I really, really enjoy spending time in Brazil. I think I love the way the people live in Brazil. Just the feel, every restaurant has live music and everybody's happy, and I love the beach culture. I'm a big fan of Sao Paulo, even though I find it to be sort of just this ugly concrete jungle. Every time I go there, it just has this energy that excites me, and I love being there. I think Brazil has a lot of opportunities. I think, as the US and Europe sort of decline in their power and those BRICS countries start to rise, I really think Brazil is the one to watch, especially if they can get their act together. Which is not a given, but Brazil has a ton of potential. The one caveat I would say is the currency. It's very hard to know what's going to happen to that. Right now I think the dollar is sitting at around 5, the euro's like 5.5. Is it going to go the direction it's been going the last half dozen, 10 years, and go up to 10, or is it going to go back to like 1.25? And with something like real estate, wow, that's, drastically, that could make something a phenomenal investment or a terrible investment, just the currency. So as I start to invest, I'm in the process right now, with my girlfriend. We're buying an apartment in a small city that she's from in the Minas Gerais state. And I have my eyes, I want to buy in one of these kitnets, which it's basically just it's a glorified studio apartment, basically. I want to buy one of those in Sao Paulo and probably Rio too. And I just see them as great investments because, as like you said, in dollars, euros, depending on the day, the exchange, somewhere between 80 and 100,000. You can, if you buy it in the right place in a nice building, you can rent it out for 100, 125, 150 more in season, like around comfortable. 70-80% occupancy, really good investments if you run the numbers. Easy to get a 15, even 20% return, which on a small real estate investment's phenomenal. And the added bonus for me is I like these cities. So, how cool is it to have an apartment? Okay, I'd go spend a couple of weeks in Sao Paulo, a couple of weeks in Rio. And then when it's not rent, when I'm not there, I'm making money. So I think that's the best kind. I'd much rather do that than buy, a 3-bedroom apartment for $500,000, where all the
in just one place. Yeah,
exactly. I like having the flexibility, being able to move around. So again, though, if anybody who's considering investing in Brazil because of the currency, I would say it's a good investment only if you're comfortable leaving the money in the country. because if I'm gonna buy an apartment, maybe I want to sell and buy another apartment, but as long as that money stays in Brazil, I don't care if the currencies, well, I care, but it really doesn't matter if the real goes to 10 or back to 1. It makes no difference, because the money, the investment's staying there. And I think if you're okay with that, I think Brazil is a pretty good place to invest. I also have my eyes. Well, I have with my girlfriend, we have one of the physical businesses I have is a clothing store in this small town in Brazil, and that's sort of my first. It's a small business, sort of wet my feet, see what's complicated, what's not with a Brazil doing business there, and I have my eyes on. My next one, I will probably do some sort of gym Pilates studio in Rio, but that's a bigger business, so I have to figure out how the business works in Brazil first. So I'm maybe a year away from doing that.
Can't wait to see your Portuguese in 6 months to 1 year if you do all this, Jeremy. It's like it's gonna skyrocket. You're gonna be so fluent on all this, and yeah, it's wow. It means like when you share all this, I'm like, okay, he's pretty convinced on, investing in the country and setting roots in the country.
Exactly.
So,
I really like Brazil. A lot of people always ask me, like, between Brazil and Colombia. I definitely at this point I prefer Brazil. I think the advantage of Colombia, if you're going back to the States, Colombia is a lot closer. That's the only sort of downside of Brazil to me, is it's very far, not so much from Europe, but from the United States. It's a long flights to get back to the States. But I every time Brazil's one of those places, every time I go, when it's time to leave, I don't want to leave. So that's always a very positive sign for me.
I mean, what can I tell you? That I totally get you if I'm having this call from Florianopolis, from Brazil as well. So
exactly.
It's such a beautiful place in here. Totally. And actually, you can see it as, it's far from the United States, but if you want to create this lifestyle that you mentioned, is in the future, I might just go there once every 5 years. And you actually see it from safety standpoint of, the South is like, the more South I go, the better. The fact that I might be more protected if something happens more in the Northern Hemisphere, around Mexico, Central America, whatever, like Paraguay, south of Brazil, even Rio, Sao Paulo, are quite separated from possible conflict that might happen more in the north. So it has its pros and cons, something that somebody might value a lot, actually.
Yeah, I do think if everything does get really bad, I think that southern, what do they call it, the Southern Cone in South America will be one of the better spots in the world to be, for sure. Yeah,
totally agree. So wrapping up this episode, there are some rapid fire questions that I always love to ask, and we can still spend some time on it. But the idea is one question and the answer. Though I know that some of them might be interesting and we might want to go a bit deeper. Are you ready for those?
Let's go.
Okay. First one, a book that changed your life for good. In a sentence, why?
Well, I would probably say, well, I'll give you two, actually. The first I would say, I mentioned earlier, was The Emergency by Neil Strauss, because that really set me on the journey to get the second citizenship and the sovereignty and all of those concepts. And then the other one, which I read shortly before I came, which is probably the original of all of them, was the 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. Yeah, I think I think there's a lot of good information in that book. I actually went back and looked at it a couple of years ago. Somewhat outdated at this point, but the general concept is spot on. He was so far ahead of his time, with that idea that this whole thing you can do differently and you can do it better. And you can go live in another country for a fraction of what it is you're living now. Global arbitrage, all of those concepts. He's the first one that really got me thinking down those rabbit holes, I guess you could say.
Yes, and look at that. You took that info and boom, you applied it right on. This is how you live and how you help people now. 3 habits that you prioritize in your life because they make you feel good about yourself.
So the 3 I would say are
and I know you have one habit that it's popular habit.
What habit?
I remember when we talked in Baja, one of the habits that they mentioned at the table, but that was funny. But go ahead. I don't know if it's gonna come on this list or not.
The Red Bull?
Yes.
I wouldn't put that.
Go ahead.
So I for those who don't know, one of the things I do the intermittent fasting thing every day. I usually don't eat till about 2:00. And the only thing I consume in the morning is one of those 0 carb Red Bulls. And I do that every day. I don't drink coffee, just 1 Red Bull a day. For me, that works. I'm not gonna say it's healthy, but it works good for me. But I would not say that's one of my 3. I'd say my 3 big ones are exercise. I do exercise 5-6 times a week. I stay, very fit. I do a lot of Pilates, some yoga, some strength training, but definitely anywhere in the world I am 5-6 days a week, I exercise. And when I don't, like this, so Friday, Saturday, this past weekend, and then today in Madrid and yesterday were holidays. So everything's closed. So I haven't been able to exercise for 4 days, and I feel like crap. In fact, I think when this is over, I'm gonna put on a YouTube video and do something.
And go.
If I don't exercise, my bones start tightening up, and especially I think as you get older, I'm in my 40s now. It's so important to exercise every day. The second one is just get outside. I start my day every day for 2 hours. If I'm in Brazil, it's the beach. If I'm here, I go to Retiro Park and I walk my dog for 2 hours. And it's just, it's great. Most of the time my girlfriend goes with me, we talk, it's nice. Or even when I'm by myself, it's just to enjoy the nature. A lot of times I meet other people and just get outside, get out of my head. And to me, that's so much more powerful a way to begin your day than the people who say, "Oh, wake up and get right to work." For me, that doesn't work. I think it's better to relax. For me, walking's meditative. I have at different times in my life gotten very into meditation. But I would say currently I do like walking meditation. I don't need to actually sit down and do it because I get that walking in nature. So that would
Beautiful.
be my
second one.
And the third thing is, I would say, taking the time to do things with family, with friends, making the time to do that. I know that's very against the whole hustle culture, which says, work, make money. But quite honestly, that's not really the way. And the times in my life where I have been hyper focused on making money and work always leads to burnout. And in the end, you're less productive. So what I found is I never get that way anymore. It's been years, is finding that balance. And when I find that balance between, the hard work, the making money, and spending time with people, with family, with friends, in the end makes you a lot more productive and it makes you a lot more money.
100%, and you make the money, and you see why you're making money. Otherwise, it's why am I making money if I can't enjoy it?
Exactly.
So you see the purpose behind it. I love it. Three people, Jeremy, that influenced the course of your life positively.
So the first, I had still a very good friend, mentor, from my time when I lived in Southern California. Very, very, very wealthy gentleman. He taught me a lot about this balance we were just talking about. And I'll tell you, I don't know if it's one, I'll tell a little story.
Yeah, please.
One thing he told me that really made me think, so this was sort of at the height of having great success in real estate in the States, making tons of money. He used to have these wine parties, and people would fly in, all his friends would fly in from all over the world to go to this wine party. And the one rule is everybody had to bring a really expensive bottle of wine. So these people would fly in with their $10,000, $50,000 bottles of wine and just drink it like it was nothing. And he owned this house in San Diego, outside of San Diego, on the bluff over the ocean. And I remember I'm sitting there with him, sitting outside on the deck, drinking wine with him, and saying, this is the life. This is when I grow up, I want to be like you. I want this house. I want this lifestyle. And he looked at me and he said, I'm going to let you in on a little secret, Jeremy. He said, when I was 16, all my friends got cars. And I said, okay, I'm going to work really hard and I'm going to get a car. So I worked really hard. I got a car. But by the time I got my car, all my friends, they already had BMWs and Porsches. So I had to work harder so I could get my BMW and Porsches. And I did. And then it was a house. And then it was a bigger house. And then it was the house on the bluff. And he said, lately, as I'm successful in business, all of my friends, the big thing is planes. So all my friends had planes. So I had to work really hard so I could buy a plane. And I did. I bought my plane. But he said, you know what, Jeremy? Now all my friends have bought jets. And in the end, it never ends.
Never ending.
So he was very influential in saying, because I had already told him my passion was traveling. He said, stop what you're doing. Do that. You're successful. You'll figure out how to make money. The most important thing isn't the money. The most important thing is figuring out how to enjoy life and what's your passion and what you want to do. So I would definitely put him up there. The second one, I would say, I had a professor who was not a particularly good professor. That wasn't why but he said one thing that has always stuck with me. And that is, he would always say that those who think they know, don't. And those who don't know or think they don't know more than they think. And I always quite liked that. It gave me a different perspective of people that, be careful. All these people who think they know everything, they might not. And a lot of these people who don't know or think they don't know anything, they know more. So, never judge too much about a person. And that lesson has always served me very well.
Wow, beautiful.
And then I think the last one, so after I went to college, there was a few month period where I needed to make some money. And so I got a job selling cars for about 3 weeks. This is in Arizona of all places. And I met one of the sales managers there, and he taught me in those months how to sell, persuasion, human psychology. And I mean, that stuff's just in my business dealings, invaluable. It served me very well.
Totally. I love that. And I'd love to ask you a follow-up question with the first gentleman, which is after you talked with him and this never-ending, chase, keeping up with the Joneses, the next car, the next plane, the next house, where did you find peace? Because let's be honest, if you have $10,000 at your name, $20,000 at your name, maybe you are struggling with things that don't give you peace of mind. Where did you set the line and say, okay, above this, everything that comes is extra, but money is not my priority anymore? Where did you set the line?
Well, I think one little, like you'd say in Espanol, dicho, one little like saying
Yeah.
that I like to live my life by is so that line is being within reason, the ability to do what you want when you want to do it. And if you're able to do that, you have enough. So could I go buy a plane tomorrow? No. But do I really need one? Is that going to change my life? No. But if I want to hop on a plane and fly business class and be on the beach in Rio tomorrow, can I do that? Yeah. So, so what I've done is I've designed a lifestyle. I've designed a life that allows me to do everything I want to do. And I continue to sort of grow my businesses and start new businesses within the confines of that. So any business that's going to take all of my time and not allow me to do, and I can tell you, I've had over the years since I've started doing, in the last 10, 15 years, I've had so many opportunities to do things where I could have made ungodly sums of money. And I decided not to because I would not have the freedom and flexibility to be able to do what I want when I want to do it. And I can categorically say that there really isn't anything today, tomorrow, that I would want to do that I'm not going to be able to do because I'm going to say, oh, I can't afford to do that. So that's
beautiful.
And it's different for everybody. I mean,
self-awareness, right?
Yeah, that's for me, for my lifestyle. I would say I have a good lifestyle, but for somebody, if what's really important to them is to have that mansion on the bluff with a Lamborghini in the driveway, they're gonna have to work harder. It's just the way it is.
Yeah. Or harder, or smarter
for each person, right?
Or more patience. Yeah, totally. Beautiful. And we go with the last two questions. If you had the opportunity to write something on a giant billboard, imagine, Jeremy, that you will display something in Rio, big billboard for 24 hours, and it's also streamlined worldwide so everybody can see it. What would you write in that billboard?
So I thought this is an interesting question, very good question. I can give you the first part of it because it would be something along the lines of the change starts with you. Because I think every person, every one of us, we have the capacity to change everything in our lives like that. It's just most people don't take the initiative and don't have the know-how to actually do that. And the reason I say that's only the first part of it, I think if you actually had a billboard for 24 hours over Rio that everybody is going to see, it's such a good opportunity that you'd have to have some sort of offer attached to that. And that's the part I don't have. So it would be some sort of offer related to the first part. Some offer as far as how you can change your life, your life, that change starts with you. And some way I would be able to help people to do that.
Beautiful. Businessman. Using that opportunity to the max
in
the philosophical and in the business level. Love that.
I love that. I love mixing the business with the philosophical.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And finally, Jeremy, who would you love to see in this podcast next? Who should come in one of these episodes?
So, I mean, because I think you're, well, I'll give you a couple. I think because you really
Go
focus a
ahead.
lot on Latin America, I think you should talk to Jake Nomada. I know he doesn't do too many of them, but the couple I have heard with him have been very good. He's a very entertaining guy. So I think he would be a good person, have some good stories for you. And another one, I think, perhaps one of the Paraguay guys. Do something with
Okay.
to learn
Some of
more
the
about
accounts in Paraguay.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know who specifically to give you, but
Okay. Somebody.
I personally would like to learn more about Paraguay.
Love it. It's
So I
valid.
think that
It's
would
valid. Yeah.
be a good one
Finding
for you.
somebody to talk about Paraguay for an hour. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Excellent. Jeremy, it's been such a pleasure. I'd love for people to know who are here, ladies and gentlemen, listening, where they can find you. What's the best way to connect with you or to find your contact or to engage with one of your services, whether it's taxes, consultancy, citizenship by descent?
So the best way to contact me now is on Twitter, the Jerz Way, Jerz, the Jerz Way. Shortly, I'm gonna launch a few products to be out there more. But on Twitter, you'll be able to follow all of that, and that's the best way to get a hold of me now.
Beautiful. So it's gonna be linked as usual down below this episode, wherever you are listening or watching it. And again, thanks for your generosity, for all the value that you shared, again, from your real experience, which is, it's priceless. It's so valuable. 15 years of stories, experiences brought into this podcast. I appreciate it. And please keep doing what you're doing, because it's beautiful to see what you say, sovereignty simplified. It's truly like this, very simplified and easy to learn from you.
Thanks for having me, Miguel.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to one more episode. I'll see you in the next one. Till then, be extraordinary. Adeu.